Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of The Real Podcasters, the show where, as ever, we're talking all things movies, TV shows, video games, and a bunch of other things in no particular order. My name's Regan, as ever, and I'm joined once again by my digitally de-aged co-host. It's Dan.
I mean, I'm definitely not de-aged, I'm just rapidly growing with age like every second, more or less.
Well, yeah, Dan, that's how time works.
Yeah, but apparently that's not how it works in this film. More to be confirmed.
Excuse me,
hello, everybody.
Dan. Oh, dear. But yes, as ever, if this is the type of podcast that you enjoy, we're available on a variety of platforms, significantly more this time, as this is the first episode in a very long time where we are now completely caught up on every single platform. So this episode will be going out on YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, blah-de-blah-de-blah, Podbean, which Dan loves. It's his favourite one. No, it's not. He absolutely hates that one. Yeah, he's twitching again. But yes, this will be going out on all those platforms now. We're caught up on YouTube. God bless reliable internet-ish. So, in terms of last week's episode, we talked about the top 5 film trailers, which was quite fun, to say the least. Had some interesting choices. A couple of doubles, randomly. Clearly, we're both big fans of Godzilla King of the Monsters trailer. It wasn't going to be about the film.
I was going to say, it's a good thing you stopped at trailer there.
Yeah. But this week, we are delving into one of our other sub-series known as spoiler material, courtesy of my girlfriend's idea for that name. I'm just keeping it. I think it's a great little title. This is for any new release that's, well, we need to delve into spoilers for. And trust me, when you're talking about Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, we're absolutely going into spoilers. There's no way I'm talking about this spoiler-free. Surprisingly difficult, actually, as it turns out, because all my issues with this...
Yeah.
Well, 85% of the issues with this are spoilers-ish. And I feel like Dan's is probably similar, because he hasn't explicitly said what he thinks, yes. I've already got a review on Letterboxd that's spoiler-free. If you're so interested, you can check that out in the description below.
Sponsored content there.
Yes, I'm sponsoring myself.
Yeah.
Again. That's just how that works.
Alright, so are you wanting my thoughts on...
Well, I mean...
spoiler-free.
Well, first of all, I mean, obviously, give a bit of a breakdown of the film. This is, of course, the 5th Indiana Jones film in, 40 years. 42 years. 41, 42. One of those numbers. This time directed by James Mangold, best known for doing The Wolverine, Logan, Le Mans 66, Girl Interrupted, tons of films. We're really, really great filmmaker. Taken over from Steven Spielberg, who left the project, I think, in 2021-ish, just because this film has been constantly worked on for years. Once again, starring Harrison Ford in his final portrayal of the famed adventurer wearing a hat. In terms of what actually happens in this film, without spoiling anything, we meet Indiana Jones, once again played by Ford, in 1969. The astronauts have just come back from the Apollo 11 mission, and he's thrust into a globetrotting adventure with his goddaughter Helena, played by Phoebe Waller-Bridge, to locate a mysterious artifact that can rewrite history. And Mads Mikkelsen, the actor, is trying to find it as well. Ooh. Doing that again. I can't actually remember if I did it on this one or Graveyard Chit Chat, or if it was both.
It was both.
It was both.
Yeah, it was both.
Yeah. As you can tell from our tone of voices, maybe we're not big on this film.
Well, maybe a tone of voice isn't everything. You never know. I might be absolutely slapdash happy about this film.
That sigh should be it. But yes, as is customary, because Dan is the guest, I need your thoughts, spoiler-free, of course. How were you on Indiana Jones and the Why of Destiny? Sorry, the Dial of Destiny.
God damn it. Right, so I'm going to have to give a bit of history here, right? Mm-hmm. I've loved Indiana Jones since I was a kid, right? I mean, pretty much watched the original trilogy, I don't know, tons. But I always found that Raiders and Last Crusade were definitely the most rewatched ones. And then it was just nothing but Last Crusade. and then Temple of Doom. Just basically watched them all of my childhood. And then upon the release of the Crystal Skull in 2008, kind of lost a bit of interest for a while. I mean, it's not the worst film ever, but it's just nothing on the trilogy at all. It's too clean for an Indiana Jones film. We'll
very,
say
very
that.
clean.
And then you get to this. Now, I was already quite mixed on how this was going to... You know, I went in with just, like, middle expectations, to be honest, because this is, you know, it's been a long time since an Indiana Jones film. It's been since 2008, however many years that actually is. It's a long time. 15 years since last Indiana Jones film. So, booked my ticket for View, and it was in, like, the biggest screen they've got, and surprisingly there was, like, less than 10 people in the screening at the time.
Well, I think as well, I mean, bearing in mind, I mean, you saw us, the rare time that you've seen the big release that we're going to cover before me, because I was still at work on that day. But I think you saw it, like, what time was it, like 10 or 11 o'clock or something?
12 p.m. exact.
So, I mean, I suppose, like, especially like midweek, I don't usually anticipate a lot of people being there. I think the evening one probably would have been quite...
I think the evening ones are probably a bit more packed, but it's really tough doing it, like, spoiler-free, so I'll just give a general sort of opinion on it. I thought it was pretty crap, I ain't gonna lie. There's nothing really much more to say in terms of spoiler-free. I'm not going to go into like really the ins and outs because all the issues I have with it are spoiler. But I don't know. It's not absolutely terrible. It's not. There are some good ideas in it, but the absolute nonsense to add in a certain plot device is just dumb beyond belief, and it just feels like I've had my entire childhood just shat on, quite honestly.
Oh, you're going to be one of those people.
Yeah, I love Indiana Jones, man. This film just destroyed me. Destroyed me like... No, we can't, because...
No, we can't.
But yeah, that's my thoughts. It's not that great of a film, sadly, and I really wanted it to be, considering it's Harrison Ford's last Indiana Jones film. I really wanted it to be good, you know, because the trick is with something like that is you give the fans like the penultimate send off, and here it was just the penultimate disappointment in all honesty. As Regan cracks open the whiskey.
Excuse me, I don't drink whiskey, I drink rum.
God, you
a lot of it.
Yeah, I do too. Why is the rum always gone?
Excuse me, we cannot reference the episode for next week already. We've got one...
I know what's the better
Disney
film.
thing to talk about. Well, yeah.
Nah, it's... I just sort of sat in that cinema like, Jesus, I just paid like £7 for a seat when realistically I should have just went with the cheapest seat possible.
In terms of my spoiler-free thoughts, I was quite similar, to be honest. I found it really difficult to write a review that was spoiler-free. Initially, I was just going to do what I did with when Spider-Man No Way Home came out and just immediately just wrote a spoiler review on the day of release, because I thought, I can't talk about the film. Yeah. But, you know, I've written enough reviews this year to, like, really hone in on how to do it spoiler-free, so mine was still pretty vague.
Yeah.
But I am pretty much the same. I thought this was a massive letdown. I mean, when coming out of the cinema, I tried really hard to think on the stuff that I liked. And I know my girlfriend was identical. There's one moment towards the end, I'll reference it later on, where she did actually laugh at how ridiculous it was. And that's very rare. That's very rare to hear that. I mean, you know, I saw it in the best possible circumstances. I mean, like, I saw it in IMAX. Like, it's the first IMAX film I've seen in a very long time. But, yeah, honestly, it's really difficult to find stuff that I like in this.
You know what it is? After I finished in the cinema, on the bus ride home, I was kind of just like, I'm really finding it difficult to actually pick what I enjoyed about that film, because there really isn't a lot of it when I look back.
Well, I think it's like you said, this film is not downright awful, but for what it could be, technically I'd say it is. I know people have been flicking back and forth as to whether or not this is worse than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I think it is.
Yeah.
Because
See, at least Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is somewhat bold with the idea of extraterrestrial life. The plot device in this is just stupid. It's absolutely silly.
Well, listen, because I've never had an issue with Indiana Jones meeting aliens, because no offense, he's faced the paranormal. It's just the next step, and that's fine. You know, my issues aren't necessarily with the aliens. It's just the implementation of what they represent. And at least that still feels like an Indiana Jones film. This, bar the admittedly brilliant prologue, for a few things, for the most part, it just doesn't feel like it at all. And it's one of those awkward things, because I know that people didn't like Kingdom of the Crystal Skull because it deviated too much from the original trilogy. And that's what people had an issue with. I didn't. Like, I don't necessarily have an issue with it feeling different. It's just the way they handle it just didn't work for me. And stuff in the third act, which just went completely ridiculous. And any goodwill I had left for it just evaporated like a cloud.
Just sort of shredded up in that massive jungle cutter that the Russians just somewhat have for some reason.
Well, here's the thing, they were never going to do the Russians this time, were they? I wonder why. But doing Nazis again, I think, was pushing it, frankly. Quite frankly, I think my biggest issue with this, and I had a lot, was it's technically most of the recycled plot for Indiana Jones himself is lifted straight from Han Solo in The Force Awakens. Like, it's identical when you think about it.
Oh my god.
But it also doesn't do enough to justify its own existence. Like, he had his ending in the last film. The only reason you do it again is to make a better film than that. But then you just have to do another ending.
You know what it is? Like, it literally feels like it's recycled stuff from, well, the trilogy. Mm-hmm. And, well, particularly ones where he's fighting against Nazis, so Raiders and Last Crusade. It just feels like it's that, but with less villains. It's just kind of one this time around. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, okay then, sure, why not? But as you say, like, you gave him his ending in Kingdom of the Crystal Turd. Like, if you're gonna bring him back, make a better film.
But I think it's interesting as well, because the core theme of the film is age and time. Catches up with us all,
which is actually good. Like, it is generally quite interesting.
That's a really good thing to have, and it's similar to what James Mangold did with Logan. Again, virtually identical. So we've just done the same film again, just with less nuance and a hat.
Except that Indiana Jones doesn't have like an exoskeleton.
Bloody might as well. But the issue is that theme's there. But then the film completely goes against that constantly by harkening back to the past, focusing so much on the past. And I'm like, you've completely missed the point of what you're actually saying.
Yeah.
Like, it's a great message to have, but you haven't... It's like... It just doesn't work. There's so much of this that just doesn't work. And it actually made us think on my review for The Flash, which I am actually starting to reconsider, because everyone said everything they want to say on that one, and I'm starting to rethink, because one of the things
you were very positive on that film.
But one of the things I said was I actually really liked the way that Michael Keaton's Batman is used, because he's like in his 70s, and it clearly doesn't matter because he's just running around doing stuff that he just never did as Batman in the 80s and 90s. In retrospect, I wish they'd addressed it more, because I like the fact that they address his age here. Yeah, there's not much more I can say without going into spoilers.
Actually delving into a spoiler. Yeah.
Harrison Ford's really good. He showed up, he got paid, then he left. Mads Mikkelsen chewed up the scenery like a vampire that he is. John Williams can do his job.
Well, it's way too long. Williams' last score that he's ever doing.
I think that was an issue report. I think that's changed, because it was similar to Harrison Ford, where I think he said he was going to retire after this, but I don't think... Well, he's not, because he's doing Captain America 4.
Oh god, yeah.
Which I just find is hilarious. I'm like,
you must be doing that.
Like to paraphrase Loki in the Avengers, you must be so desperate. Is it the Avengers or is it Thor 2? It doesn't matter. Yeah, I think we should just go into spoilers. We'll get into the bigger issues towards the end. This isn't going to be like a beat-by-beat playthrough of the film. But we'll kick things off with that opening prologue. Again, I really like it. It feels like a classic Indiana Jones adventure.
Yeah, I was literally going to say, it just feels like this, well, a classic Indiana Jones adventure, as you put it. It actually starts off with him getting caught by the Nazis because he's stealing from... I kind of find it funny with Indiana Jones that, like, he's plundering off the plunderers that are trying to plunder the plunder.
I mean, Pirates of the Caribbean looked at that and thought, that's a bit much, isn't it? And
it's
all they do is plunder.
Pirates of the Caribbean with guns, essentially. Like, there's...
Pirates of the Caribbean has guns. Just
just
very
take
forever
primitive
to
ones.
Reload. It just actually just thinking of that makes me think of that moment in Prey when like the shoot at the Predator and then it takes forever for them to reload.
Hold on a sec. They're just cleaning up the musket. Guy's just like sharpening his blades on the rock.
Yeah. No, but this scene obviously has a fairly big thing. That being, this is a de-aged Harrison Ford, just not really de-aged with his voice, because he still sounds 80 in that. I was thinking about this for a while. Okay, like, I don't hate it. I mean, for the most part, it's fine. It's just de-aging for me has become such a gimmick, and I kind of hate it. Like, I think
you get a bit like, surprise.
There are ways to do it, like, but anytime I see it, I always think of something better that could have been done. Like, one of the bigger ones was like Tarkin in Rogue One, when he's de-aged, and when he's first introduced and it's the reflection of him on the window, just keep that instead, or have him be like a fuzzy hologram, and you can hide the CGI. And I think for me, with this opening scene, as brilliant as it is, because it is actually really damn good and really exciting as well, it's the best stuff in the film, even though it's just another train sequence, which we saw in Last Crusade, so it's not particularly... I still maintain, and I thought about this before even seeing the film, the way they could have done it, if even though I'm going back on myself here, is take a leaf out of Raiders of the Lost Ark, where that opening scene, you don't see Indy's face for a little while, before you see it at the very end, he's like encased in shadow.
Yeah.
Do something similar, but do it from Waller's perspective, Mads Mikkelsen's character, because he has nothing to do in the opening scene beyond getting punched and getting slapped by a train thingy. I forget his name. The fact he survives that is laughable, with no markings.
You're telling me, dude. Jesus.
But I think if you focused on him, because all that happens with him in that opening scene is he's just laughed at. Essentially, he's not a particularly interesting villain if everyone's just laughing at him. Do it from his perspective. He sees Indy and Basil Shaw. Sounds like a character out of Bottom, to be honest. That would have been better. Indiana Jones' best friend. In fact, he was so close to him that he named his goddaughter. Like, well, we'll get to that. But yeah, you could have focused on him, could have given him a little bit more to do, and we see Indy doing his stuff from his perspective, so you don't always see him. So you can have like a body double for the most part, and then you can have like a few quick shots of CGI Harrison Ford. But again, from Waller's perspective, I think that would be quite different.
Yeah, would have been a lot better, I think, to be honest. I mean, the opening's fine, but I mean, as you say, de-aging is such a goddamn gimmick now. And, there's nothing wrong with it if you were just having the odd glimpse of it. Like, if you had like a close-up on his face, fine. Like, the bit where he's being questioned by the officer, that bit's absolutely spot on, because it works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it realistically should have been from Vol's perspective, because as you say, he's just pretty much laughed at and ignored by literally everybody, including his own pals, aboard this train.
Because no one takes him seriously, because they're all going after...
just think he's some little nut job.
Yeah, because I mean, like, they're going after the Christ
some
sphere
stupid
thing,
little dagger.
Which I don't mind. I mean, all of a sudden I'm thinking, why isn't that the MacGuffin this time? No, instead we've got the. I'm gonna have to look at this. The Antikythera. That's a bit of a mouthful, isn't it? I've had like 2 glasses of rum and coke. I'm already struggling with that name. I'm now going to refer to it as the MacGuffin clock thing, which is pretty standard.
I'm just going to call it the magic clock.
The magic clock.
Yeah.
You have to be very, very careful with like the naming of that. Might as well be that as well.
It's a good thing I'm not on the rum and coke, then, isn't it?
What are you even on?
Water. There's nothing special about it. It's just water. You know, this isn't Holy Grail water or anything like that. It's just plain and utter tap water.
I'm actually drinking out of a goblet, so it might as well be the Holy Grail. That's a pity. Again, thinking of better films.
It's kind of. You know, I kind of imagine the knight's voice in me head when going to see this new Indiana Jones film. You have
written this poorly. It's like, excuse me, knight that should have died 40,000 years ago.
It's like, listen here, pal. You should be dead.
Pal.
Right? Shut up.
So you're telling me I could have left this cavern this entire time? Yeah. Okay, bye. Wasted my life. The
question is, though, I've always wondered about this. Like, if the guy, I mean, obviously, from what I remember with The Last Crusade, is when the whole thing starts caving in, he's just like, oh, well, I'm staying because it's part of my duty or whatever. If you went out in the sun, is it going to be like the guy from Crystal Skull when you open the coffin, he just turns to a skeleton from all the oxidation? Yes,
it's actually him. I knew it. Yeah, he actually escaped to Venice, and then
I knew it. He had a holiday.
It was a holiday, all right. But yeah, I think for me that opening sequence, I think tone-wise, I think really works. It harkens back to like classic Indiana Jones, which we haven't seen for decades.
Yeah.
And then smash cut to the 1960s, which I think actually is a really good time period to use. I also really like the fact that, yeah, technically this is coming off the back of the Apollo 11 astronauts coming back from the moon, but it's not even about that, really. And I remember initially, like, when I was looking at behind the scenes of this and I knew they were filming based on all that, I thought, I really hope they don't tie this in with the moon landing, because that seems a bit nonsensical for an Indiana Jones film. And the closest we get is that Waller, now known as Schmidt in America, because, you know, he survived the train thingy.
Yeah, because that's like a really incognito name.
Yeah, like that's like the most generic Nazi hiding in plain sight surname you could have picked.
It absolutely is. I'm like, for God's sake, he could have went with like, I don't know, Derek or something.
Derek.
Yeah, like Smith.
The
come on,
Derek.
Like, yeah. You know, come up with a name. Oh God, this. Ugh.
But I do like, to be honest, I like angry, annoyed, older Indiana Jones. I really like that, actually. That's really funny. It's just really annoying that it comes about after him getting his happy ending. Like, marries Marion, has a son that he neglects for the rest of the film, only for him to be dead because he joined the Vietnam War, which is the exact opposite of what Mutt Williams would have done. Like, he would never have done that.
Yeah, that's like, what I was thinking of. Like
it isn't even like he's like forced
douchebag. Like,
he does it deliberately to piss him off, and I'm like, what?
It's like, hey, Dario, I'm gonna go fight for America.
And he's like, son, how dare you? I was trying to do like a Harrison Ford voice, and I can't really do that.
No, I've got some thoughts on that. Like,
yeah, but I mean, like, Indy at this age, like, that's I don't mind, because where Kingdom of the Crystal Skull danced around the concept of his age and just had him running around constantly as if he was 26. Here, that doesn't happen. Like literally, there's a moment towards the end when they're looking for Archimedes' tomb, and he's climbing up the rock face, and he just stops. And Helena's like, "What are you doing?" And he says, "Like, I'm questioning why I'm actually here." I'm like, I like that. Like, it's not just funny, but
doesn't
it's
he
also
references, like, you know, back pain?
He references back pain. He references voodoo. I'm like, you actually referenced Temple of Doom.
Yeah.
Thank you. I really appreciate that, because I love that one. Like, hot take. I mean, like, I'm sure I've mentioned this before. Like, of the original three, Raiders is my least favourite. I still really like it, but I rewatched Temple of Doom more. I really love that one. And then I love The Last Crusade even more. And I know Temple of Doom's always been Steven Spielberg's least favourite of the four, and I'm like, yes, Steven. Steven. You did some stupid stuff in Kingdom. Like, you had the fridge.
Oh, no.
You know, there is Jump the Shark, and then there is Nuke the Fridge.
Jump the shark, nuke the fridge.
Or go back in time to ancient Greece. We are doing spoilers.
We'll get to that.
We'll get to that. But yeah,
no, I do really actually appreciate bitter old Indiana Jones, because it's kind of like the world is just moving and he is not. Like, he's stuck.
Yeah.
Really, I do actually really appreciate that. Like, it's no more just happy dappy adventures. Like, the dude is literally in like some very generic American flat teaching where he's clearly just waiting for his retirement days. And then you learn that, like, his son goes off to fight in Vietnam, gets killed, and it ruins his marriage. I'm like, okay, well, the dude is literally just at rock bottom at this point.
Yeah.
Which I do actually really like, to be honest. It's actually nice that you've got the guy who is always seen to be the heroic hero. He's actually just, well, he just can't be asked to be the hero anymore, really. He's just sick of life, to be honest. But
I think it's a really endearing message to have, because I think one of the issues with Indy and Kingdom of Crystal Skull, like I say, he's quite invincible, because I think that character had become such a legend in terms of like action hero, but he never was. He always escapes by the skin of his teeth, and this film very much addresses that, and it's a nice message to have, where it's like, yeah, age happens. Like, we shouldn't run from it, just accept it, and it doesn't change who you are. I like that as a general theme. It's just the film constantly goes against that, not to the point of him doing like unbelievably ridiculous things, but it just keeps on going like, yeah, do you remember the past? Look at the past. That was fun, wasn't it? Constantly. It can't commit to it, whereas something like Logan did. Like, it really committed to, yeah, this guy ages, it needs to happen, he needs to move on, whereas this film won't let Indy do that. Yeah. And that's even after a new character is introduced, Helena Shaw, played by Phoebe Waller-Bridge. Now, I'll say this, and I'm keeping this here because I get really annoyed with this. A lot has been said about this character and Phoebe Waller-Bridge being in this film. Majority of it on the likes of YouTube and stuff by idiots who haven't seen the film yet. They have. I think it's disgusting. They've done this every single time. I think it's fine to dislike a character. There's nothing wrong with that. That's just a natural thing. Like, when you get to petty insults on the actor, just shut up. Seriously.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know anything about that, in truthfulness.
I say it way too much, not because I go looking for it, I just happen to, it just...
Not because I can't looking.
Well, because I don't, because it's just unhealthy, frankly. Like, I'll reserve my judgment until I see the film. And no offense, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, terrific actress, terrific writer as well. Like, no offense, the stuff she did on No Time to Die was great. Really liked her.
Oh yeah, she was in that.
Well, she wasn't in it, but she did write like a good section of the script
for it.
Oh, she did stuff
right.
Like, she brought a lot of levity to it, and I really liked that. I think she's really good here. I don't like Helena Shaw as a character because I don't really understand who she's supposed to be, and like she's a new character in every single scene. Like, you never really know where her allegiances actually are. You don't really know what she wants, and I think for me it's just not that interesting at all. But again, that's down to the script, not to her.
Yeah, I think she could have had a little bit more in truthfulness. But again, that is just entirely subjective. I'm not going to be a petty arsehole and basically slate her for the entire thing because of her performance or whatnot. Like, she is great, but it's just I wish she had a lot more to do. But then again, you could say that about like half the characters in this mess of a film.
Well, exactly. Everyone's really good. Even Mads Mikkelsen, who, like I jokingly said before, like, he just, he sucks up the moisture like a duck.
Sucks up the moisture like a sponge.
Sponge is a better analogy than a duck. But yeah, like, he's there. He did it.
He is there, yeah.
Yeah. he's able to somewhat elevate the material that he's got, but not by much. Like, he's quite entertaining, but I think his motivation for why he's doing all this to replace Hitler, this film does pour fun at the fact they're going to go back in time and kill Hitler. Like, I find that quite funny, but his is actually quite logical. Like, he's going to kill him before the war actually starts, but not when he's a baby.
Yeah, like, it's actually quite clever. Like, it's not like one of those things, oh, I'm going to go back to, like, you know, the height of where Hitler is in charge.
It's quite clever. It's reasonably clever.
It's somewhat clever.
Yeah, somewhat clever.
It's somewhat clever that he decides, you know what it is, I'm smarter than this guy, I'm sick of the guy's mistakes, maybe I can just do it instead. You know, it's actually quite terrifying in ways, because then you kind of have that typical threat of like, oh no.
Yeah, it was quite interesting in that regard. I just kept on thinking back to episodes of Doctor Who, specifically with the bootstrap paradox, where like you can't go back in time and change something like that, because then you'll never go back in time in the first place to change it, because it never happened. So already you're gonna destroy a lot more than the world. You're gonna destroy the entire bloody universe. And I'm like, I don't need a universe-ending threat in like an Indiana Jones film.
I don't need Kang the Conqueror in Indiana Jones, please.
He's not in here. It's fine.
Well, this guy's pretty much him. He's trying to be, at least.
Or Voller was just a variant. Gonna have a bit of multiverse madness in Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones in the multiverse of madness.
Oh, stop it. Stop it.
Yes, in this universe, traffic lights are blue, red, and yellow instead of red, yellow, and green. That was literally a universe in that film, and I'm like, wow. Riveting. Wow. It really changes my perspective on the universe. They changed one of the colours of a traffic light.
Wow.
That is COVID filmmaking at its finest. But no, I mean, Voller is fine. You know, he is absolutely fine. I
mean, Mads' performance of him is absolutely terrific, and he actually is quite a good villain, but he would have been even better if he actually had things to do throughout the beginning of the film and other parts of the film, because he's just sort of like, for a lot of it, I feel that, I don't know if you feel the same way, but when the scenes with him and his gang, it's always his gang that just seem to be kind of executing the plans, whereas he's just kind of sat at the desk twiddling his thumbs, just waiting for them to bring this person in or whoever. Like, it's your plan, get off your ass and do something.
Yeah, but I think as well, like, I like the setup where he's, you know, he's still natty, but he's been hired by the Americans to help with the moon landing. I thought, this is a very high... I mean, I'm not going to start comparing this to Marvel, because I cannot believe I'm thinking of a Marvel-related thing that's better than this. But Hydra, in most of the Marvel movies, infiltrates most of the US government and does their own thing. And you've got ex-Nazis being hired by the US government to work on like, the space race. I'm like, that right there is a golden opportunity, and that's a good idea to bring back the Nazis in the 60s, because that did actually happen. We did have ex-Nazis being hired for NASA. That was actually a thing. But the film doesn't do anything with it. It just keeps on telling us, oh yeah, you helped with the moon landing. Did he? I didn't say any of that.
Yeah, like, I'm pretty sure his character just mentions that, you know, he basically helped put people on the moon, and that is it.
Yeah,
but
like well, I think as well, like, the thing is also that doesn't lead to anything. He just happens to be doing it.
It doesn't do anything. He just says it.
Looking for the clock,
like,
thing.
You know, it doesn't connect him to what his goal is. He's just like, oh yeah, by the way, I put somebody on the moon. So
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like, he's off doing one thing, whereas in the other thing, he's looking for Archimedes' alarm clock. It doesn't.
Archimedes' alarm clock. Oh my god, that is perfect. No, that's what it's been called now. Archimedes' alarm clock.
The classic AAC, Archimedes' alarm clock.
The guy just sleeps in. There's a time rift somewhere. It's like, oh Jesus, I slept in.
She's like, oh no, I slept in. It's been 2,000 years. Bugger. Well, I've got a watch and a plane. Interesting. We'll get to that. Very, very soon, actually.
Is it now?
It's like, no, not yet. Oh. In a second. But yeah, I think, as much as I'm quite annoyed with the fact that it's just the Nazis again, there is a setup for it being actually quite good. Hell, there's even side characters I think are way better than anyone else. Like Boyd Holbrook is just a really annoying henchman. I think it's really good. You've got like the big dude as well, naturally, but even the CIA agent, Agent Mason, she's really good. And honestly, considering that she's initially hunting for Jones and then is actually kind of on his side, and then gets shot on a plane because she's got nothing else to do.
I was actually reading something before. There was an article before about the actress who played her. She mentioned that when she was cast, she got the script and she actually wasn't too impressed with the way her character was killed off because it was seen to be quite offensive and stuff like that. I don't know what it was.
There's always going to be that. I think
she said that, and the director and her basically just talked it over, and they managed to sort something out. So there you go.
But to be honest, I think she should have been the one to go with Indy on this adventure, not this randomly introduced character that's supposed to be really important that we've never heard of before. You know, it is either her or bloody bring back Short Round. I mean, Ki Hee Kwan is doing fantastic stuff. You could have easily done that.
I would happily.
You know, it is, right? For a brief moment when Indy hints at Antonio Banderas' character, I honestly thought it was going to be Short Round.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of me that thought you're going to keep that quiet and then reveal it, because they kept it quiet until the very last minute that Karen Allen was actually going to be in this, because they kept that completely silent.
Oh, yeah.
Probably because it was reshot a week ago. Because that entire thing seems completely pointless. But you could have easily had him in. It's weird how I'm thinking, oh yeah, just keep on harkening to the past, please, when I've been criticising it because of that.
You know, it does. I mean, even if he wasn't in, it would just be nice to have like some reference to him with like the little kid. Like, I think what would have been actually quite clever is, you know, when the scene with the tuk-tuk and it breaks down, and you've got the kid basically like doing his best to fix it. Like, I think Indy just should have said something like, you know, you remind me of this kid I used to know. I'm like, yeah, that's perfect, sorted. That would have been great. Done.
Again, I mean, like, that film has always been seen as like the bad egg of the entire franchise. I'm like, it's not. It never has been.
Nah, I wouldn't say it's a bad egg. I mean, I think it's a very good film. It is. It's a very good film. He's helping himself to more alcohol because he knows what's coming.
It's the third glass, especially if it's the third fucking MacGuffin.
It's the third glass.
There's just gonna be a lot of moments of me cutting out the bits where I sort of like hit the side of the microphone with alcohol.
He's just gonna go on a complete other tangent.
Well, I suppose it's time to talk about the MacGuffin, the Antikythera, or Archimedes' alarm clock, as I've now affectionately called it. It seems like I have to now.
Seems like I have to.
Yeah, so this is actually based on like an actual thing, which when researching it sounds amazing. Like, it just suddenly makes the Greeks just seem like, yeah, they clearly bloody time travelled. If they made a computer in, like, what was it, 21 BC or 200
if
BC.
they had a Windows XP.
No, an Apple Mac. They were using Windows 11. It's like, yeah, this is brilliant. No, it's not. It's thoroughly average.
Using
Windows 8. That's even worse.
Oh,
just
like, God.
Tile things. We are big fans of tiles. Which, as it turns out, there were.
It's where the Romans got the inspiration from the mosaics from. It all makes sense now.
It was from Microsoft.
It all makes sense now.
Again, we're just thinking of better films now. It's just like an Adult Swim version of Indiana Jones.
It's like some cave painting of like the Windows thing.
Or actually, the first bit of written music is actually just the Windows dial down theme. Like, how did they know?
How did they know this?
Haven't even talked about the MacGuffin yet. Only lost the plot. But yeah, I like, in concept, I like the idea of using that kind of device. My biggest issue is that they actually follow through on what they hint at. Because despite hearing it in the first trailer and seeing the title, which, I'll be honest, I hate the title. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. And yeah, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull sounds stupid. Not really. I think it sounds fine.
No,
but
to be honest, I think Dial of Destiny is actually a worse title.
I know for a while there was rumours that it was just going to be called Indiana Jones. I thought, honestly, that isn't bad. Frankly, that's a bit final. Whereas this just sounds just a bit ridiculous.
Just a bit ridiculous.
But yeah, it's like in the trailers when they say like, there's this mysterious device that can rewrite history, and I'm like, oh no. Oh no.
Not again!
Again, meeting aliens is trivial compared to having
compared to
essentially
this.
the world's smallest TARDIS. In fact, it's circular and everything. Yeah, so
The world's
it turns
smallest TARDIS. As in,
when you think
it's
about
a like very bashed up bomber plane.
it actually turns out they do actually spoil the fact that they do go back in time in the trailer, because you see the shots with Helena and Indy falling out of the plane. If you look closely in the background when it cuts to a bit of the island and the sea, and you can see the old Greek ships on the ocean.
Oh God, yeah. I should actually. I should have clicked on that, considering I watched it like twice.
To be honest, wait, you watched the film twice or you watched the trailer twice?
The trailer.
Phew.
I'm not gonna go. Regan, once was enough, mate.
Well, it depends if you want to go and see it for free instead. But I mean, granted, you had. I mean, I think it's easier to pick up on after the fact, but it's the fact it's in there to begin with. I just find it's hilarious. Because I know it was rumoured for a while that it was going to implement some form of time travel. And it's weird how when you use it, and you have Indy, like, midway through the film when they're on the way to finding, like, the underwater stuff, which that entire sequence is rubbish. And he talks about the death of his son and how he wishes he could go back and tell him to not go off to war. And I'm sat there thinking, he never ponders the idea of using this thing to go and do that. Not once.
No.
And that's fine, because that's a good thing. That shows he's got a little bit of, you know...
Well, do you know what it is? I suppose it's kind of like the consequence of using it, because as we know, obviously we're in spoiler territory, if that wasn't completely and utterly obvious by now, that, you know, your actions just by being in, like, the middle of a siege... like 1960s weaponry is still like absolutely nothing against Roman medieval weaponry. I mean, they shoot like bloomin' harpoons and stuff into this plane. I'm pretty sure like one of the henchmen gets like harpoons straight out of it.
Yeah, it's. I mean, this is during the siege of Syracuse, which I'm sure actually, I'm sure there's a bit of it in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, actually, or at least it's during the. I think it's during the Hellenistic period. I think it is. Yes, it is. Which there are some bits in that I actually quite like. Like, I love the idea that the Greeks think that the planes are dragons. That's such a great idea, because
which kind of makes sense with mythology and stuff like that.
Nothing else to compare it to.
Yeah, because I mean, they're gonna say, "Oh, it's a plane."
Yeah, it's like, "Oh no, it's an aeroplane. It's specifically a Lancaster bomber," and they're like, "Oh what?
Oh what?" So it kind of makes sense the fact that they call it a dragon. I think even the Romans call it dragons, because what in God's name are you gonna call it? Like some like dude on the ship is gonna be like, "Oh yeah, that's a plane."
Yeah. So I don't mind that little bit. Is like, it's mostly just as like a joke. My girlfriend did really the bit that she laughed at, because I mentioned this before in the spoiler-free bit. She laughed at the moment when Archimedes says "Eureka."
Yeah, I did have a little chuckle at that. I did have a bit of a chuckle at that, actually.
Especially because it's subtitled with him just saying "Eureka." And you're like, that's
just
a
a waste of a subtitle.
That isn't an English word.
Like, the dude says "Eureka," and yet it's subtitled "Eureka." Like, we know it's Eureka. Yeah. Like, for God's sake.
But it's interesting, because when they get to Archimedes' tomb, and you know, like, looking, and they find his body, and they find like drawings of like creatures with propellers, and you've got the watch. I thought, okay, whose watch actually is this? And then it cuts to Voller putting a watch on you, like, oh, it's his. So one of the things that's said, like once they're in the siege bit, and then bloody Indy's like, I want to stay, which works for his character. I still hate it. But even Helena says that'll just cause a complete paradox. I'm sat there thinking, well, not just that, but you've also found the watch. So, no offense, anything you do to try and stop this is just going to break it down entirely.
Yeah, I'm mixed on it, truthfully, because on one hand, the dude has lost literally everything that he cares about. He's lost his marriage, he's lost his son, he's got no job, he's literally been, well, he's retired, so he can literally just do whatever the hell he pleases now. So why not be a part of, like, one of the most spectacular battles in history, according to this guy? But then, as you know, his assistant says, well, it's pretty much his mother at this point, because she's just saved his ass, really.
That's a bit disconcerting if you're referencing her as his mother when she's actually his goddaughter. That's a bit worrying,
she literally acts like his goddamn mother. She does. She really does. And I mean, maybe that was just deliberate with her character, so I don't know. The film I don't really care for, so they could just... could have a talking monkey in it for all I care, and it'd still be a better film.
Mm-hmm. But I think as well, I mean, it's...
I hate the fact that... I mean, I don't hate it, but I'm truthfully mixed on, like... You've got this, like, classic hero who basically would just never ever in his right mind saying, oh, I'm gonna stay. He's like, yeah, let's go. Let's back on the plane, guys.
What it is, really, is just manufactured tension. And I don't buy it at all.
There's not one bit of goddamn tension there. I'm just like, oh, you
no.
pillock.
But I think as well, it's like... Time travel for me is such a very specific thing. There's only so many ways you can do it. And I don't... It's not just that I don't like... I just don't need it in like an Indiana Jones film. I don't like the way it's used here at all. Like, if there's one image I didn't need to see, it's of Indiana Jones in ancient Greece watching the siege of Syracuse going on. Like, it's just... I don't need it at all. Like, at least with the aliens, like, it's brief because that's all you need.
Yeah.
With this, like, I think you still could have had the idea of time travel, because realistically, the villain always dies going after what they want. Like, even in the last film, bloody Spalko wants all the knowledge from the alien. She gets it, and it kills her because it's too much. Like, that's all of a sudden, that's a fine way to die. Whereas with Waller, he's aiming to get a 1939, and he's like, well, no, there's continental drift. That in itself is complete bollocks, because 2,000 years does not change the continents that much. If it was millions of years and they ended up in like the time of the dinosaurs, and fair enough. It's like, I'm going to go back and kill a random triceratops, and that will save us World War II. That in itself would have been funnier, frankly. It's like, I'm going to kill this one. I've got a major issue with this one.
Oh, I hate that one so much.
Major gripe with this.
Imagine they just go through it and there's like loads of pterodactyls, and the pterodactyls just looking at the plane like, are you also a dinosaur?
It's like, oh my god, he's like us, but armoured. And he's constantly roaring.
And he's also on fire too.
Yeah, we are as well, because the asteroid just hit.
Wow.
The asteroid was the plane. Again, I'm thinking of better ideas. And constantly going back to episodes of Doctor Who, as it turns out, which that series also does. But yeah, I mean, Waller dies just getting shot down by the Greeks or / Romans, and then just blows up. But then Archimedes gets
definitely
the
most like unsatisfactory like villain death I think throughout the entire film.
It just sort of happens.
Yeah, like whereas like the other films, I mean, in Raiders, the bloomin' Germans unleash some, well, Nazis. The Nazis unleash some ancient power concealed within the Ark, and it pretty much melts them all, which is just glorified beauty. Temple of Doom, the guy literally gets chucked to alligators. Last Crusades, the guy, the Nazi commander or something like that basically
Donovan
just goes off a cliff in his tank. The Donovan basically just decides, you know what it is, screw it, I'm gonna have this cup of water, and he turns into some skeleton. And obviously Spelko basically has all the knowledge, and her petty little brain can't take it, so she implodes.
It's
and this guy just falls from a plane and dies. Finn.
The end. But the one thing is, like, yeah, that's fine. I like keeping that trend of the villain dies from their hubris, from like what they want. It kills them in like the end. So that's fine. I don't need Indiana Jones meeting Archimedes. That I think was a bit too meta for me.
Like, that was Indy being way too on the nose for my liking. I was just like, oh, for God's sake, we're just pulling every possible string we've got here, like, aren't we?
Funnily enough, I'm reading like the plot on Wikipedia just because I like how it changes every single day. Every time someone looks at it and thinks, let's do something else. And I'm looking at like Archimedes returns with the version of the dial they brought from 1969 and a watch taken from Voller's body, so it doesn't stay with Archimedes. So you've already broken that rule of time travel. With Indy realizing the dial was made for the sole purpose of bringing help from the future, and as a result, all time fissures lead to this siege. Of course they do. Every single one of them. But also the fact that, like, they make me deal about how so clearly Archimedes could see into the future. These time fissures are in the sky. They don't have access to anything in the sky unless a plane rocks up. But no offense.
Yeah, unless the guy has like some absolutely gigantic telescope or a makeshift wooden plane. Like, I don't see it.
In fact, one of the few things I liked in that sequence was actually seeing the mirrors that Archimedes was rumored to have used during the Siege of Syracuse. This is like a real thing. I mean, like, it's made fun of in an episode of Horrible Histories, where he has like the mirrors on plinths, and when the sun shines off it, he like angles it towards the ships and they burn. That's always been rumored. There's never been actually any evidence that happened. I really like the fact that we say that. I thought that's actually quite cool. That looks quite entertaining, to say the least. If a bit sci-fi, if I'm honest, and a bit CGI, of which there's a lot.
Yeah.
You're telling me they couldn't have just laid siege to Greece? Tell me they couldn't have just done that in camera.
Guys, we're making a film, right? Nothing personal.
It just makes me think of the thing. It was like a reel on Instagram I sent you of Christopher Nolan talking to an exec about Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I plan to actually bomb them. Like, Chris, like, yes, I do. Okay, guys, we are going to Japan.
Jesus Christ.
Obviously, I don't need that. But yeah, it's just the time travel stuff for me just completely defeats the point of it.
To be honest, I was losing a lot of, like, already by the time Waller's plan goes into full steam ahead or full aeroplane ahead, we'll say, because, you know, airplane, time travel. I was already a bit bored, so I was like, there is absolutely nothing else they can do to just make me feel the way I do any better. And what happens? Time travel. I'm like, oh, for God's sake, seriously.
Yeah.
Like, I'm more than fine with Indiana Jones doing something different. Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was an example of that. It's not a great film by any means necessary, but I stand by the fact that it was quite bold to go with alien life at the end of the day, because it makes sense. You can't always do that. He just goes and ransacks some temple and Nazis rock up. It's just going to get boring and dull. You got to mix things up. I mean, it's Indiana Jones. An adventure has to be an adventure. You can't have the same adventure over and over and over and over again. Like, as much as I'd really like that, you know, seeing the guy being chased by 80-year-old Harrison Ford being chased by a boulder, I don't think it's going to work out very well.
Yeah.
Like, the guy's going to run, he's going to snap a leg.
It's interesting, there's a shot in the trailer, funny that you mentioned the boulder, of, I think, of them moving a boulder to get through the tomb of Archimedes. That's not in the film. But, yeah, that doesn't matter. And just, for me, it doesn't gel with me. It's not just the fact that I don't like time travel in like an Indiana Jones film, it's just the implementation of it still doesn't work. It really doesn't.
No, like, it doesn't feel justified in the slightest.
But I think as well, as soon as you introduce some form of time travel into a franchise that didn't used to have it, all of a sudden it's like implementing the multiverse. It's like all of a sudden I care a lot less because I'm like, well, I'll just wait for the next variant to come along. Like, I don't mind. I don't mind with time travel in Doctor Who because that's the whole point of the show.
It would be like Laurie Strode goes back in time to kill Michael Myers as a baby. That is how ridiculous it literally sounds like.
It's like evil takes any form.
Yeah, but you see
anyone
what I
will
mean,
become Michael
like,
Myers.
It's Indiana Jones as a franchise that has never ever once delved into time travel until now, and it is such a disappointment, man, because this is the last, like, I'm assuming this is going to be the last Indiana Jones.
Oh yeah, I mean, no offense. If Harrison Ford doesn't retire in the next 2 or 3 years, I'll be surprised. But this is the thing with me. The bit that kept me intrigued was the fact he even agreed to do it. Because, no offense, between Han Solo and Indiana Jones, it's the latter he prefers. He always has. So when he agrees to do that, I'm like, okay, there must be something. Like, there's got to be. It was mostly just the fact that, you know, Disney squandered Star Wars as much as they did. I'm like, another legacy franchise, great. Let's see how badly you screw this one up. And as it turns out, even worse, to be honest. I think I might have actually preferred episode 9 to this. I can't believe I'm saying that. That film is crap balls.
I wouldn't quite go there. I mean, I know the time travel thing is ridiculous, but I mean, honestly, having your arse smacked with a spiked cactus is better than watching Star Wars Episode 9.
Maybe.
Possibly. Do you know this from experience, Dan?
I can't dispute it. Not that. I can't dispute as to whether or not I've had a cactus. Got completely off the rails here. This is just how that works when talking about a
much
film
like the film, really.
Yeah. The worst thing is, right, you know, I've joked about this on the last few episodes. I am still convinced that you saying no to this initially was the reason we weren't going to cover this. I'm convinced you said no. Because honestly, I was planning on it. I had it in the diary, and then and then I got rid of it.
Maybe I have the dial, and maybe I've just went back in time and just erased my.
Couldn't you have just gone back in time and fixed something actually useful?
No.
As opposed to delete this film. You could have done, you know.
Well, I could have done, should have done. But you know what it basically is, this film? It's basically by land, by rail, by sea, by time travel.
Didn't Churchill say something like that? I'm sure he did. We will fight them on the train. We will fight them on the beaches. We'll fight
we
them
will
in
fight
the
them
past.
by time travel.
And like Winston, just like shush, 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 shush. Which, in fairness, Churchill has met the Doctor in Doctor Who, so it's entirely possible he would do that.
Man, this film.
Oh dear. Ending though. Despite a cute little bit with Marion, who randomly pops up. I was waiting for her to pop up because, again, I'd found out like the day before that she is actually going to be in it because they put it in like a press release that Karen Ellen was actually in this. And I thought, okay, she's just going to pop up at the end. And they're going to do like a Raiders reference. And they do. And she's like, it hurts here, here, here. I'm like, oh. That's it. It's like, oh, that's quite cute.
Yeah, I was like, good
at
for
the same
you.
time, that's like the equivalent of Michael Keaton in The Flash randomly saying, "You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts." That's not a thing that he just randomly say. Like, of everything he's ever said in his life.
Well, see, there's actually a deleted scene where Michael Keaton and Ezra Miller just go to a peanut stand and buy some nuts.
You want to get some nuts? Yeah, actually, I do. There you go.
Sure.
And that's how the Batman and the Flash became friends. Over a packet of peanuts.
Not by, you know, banding together and stopping evil. No, by going to the nearest peanut vendor.
All of a sudden would have been better than bits of that film. But, yeah, I mean, Marion comes back for nostalgia's sake. Sala's in it a couple of times. I like the fact that John Rhys Davies is even in this as Sala. and people still got annoyed because, well, let's face it, he's not really the ethnicity of the character that he is acting. But I found it more annoying that he's now just a cab driver. I'm like, wow, that's a bit of a stereotype, isn't it? I feel like I'm like, that's not fair.
The guy is literally like assistant, like literally risking his life in Raiders for Indy, and we get to hear him and he's just giving that all up to become some bleeding taxi driver.
Mm-hmm. I did kind of go over to my girlfriend before when he's like, give him hell, Indiana Jones, and Indy nearly gets hit by a car. I was like, that's a much shorter film than I was expecting.
I'm not gonna lie, I laughed a bit too hard at that scene.
Oh, I did as well. I was like, oh, we were nearly over.
It's like, oh.
I will actually just reference this just like as we're recording, because I did put out that Instagram story of us doing this recording, and a friend of mine at work, Amy, has said, and I quote, "I recommend you doing a podcast where you just get drunk. I think it would be quite entertaining." It's like,
I mean, this has been recommended innumerable
the 2022
amount of times.
Film Awards was supposed to be that. It's just I didn't have any internet at the time.
Yeah, he was kind of just doing it with his invisible friend.
I might as well have done. But yeah, shout out to Amy now. I'm probably going to get a message being like, oh my god, you referenced me in episode 59.
Yay!
Yay!
Hi, Amy.
But yeah, I mean, Salah being in this, fine. Marion being in this, yeah.
Wait, it kind of just feels like the very typical wrap up of something like this. You know, you've got like the estranged love, and it's like, oh, she comes back now. I'm like, oh wow, we really went there, didn't we? You can't just let them be miserable.
Well, I think as well, no offense, what they do is just rehash the ending of the fourth film. Like, he gets his happy ending with Marion, and he gets it again in this one. I'm like, why? What's the point? And like, no offense, the ending with the hat I think is better in the last film, where it's like Shia LaBeouf almost puts it on his head, and then Indy takes it. I like how I'm not actually referring to him by name; I'm just referring to him by actor, but Harrison Ford by like character name. And with this one, it just ends Mandalorian season 3 style with the weird closing of the circle thing, except around the hat. So he just steals it as if he's, I don't know what he's going to do with that hat now in that scene after he's been snogging Marion. It's a shame that this film is 2.5 hours and there's nothing of that.
Oh dear God, no.
Oh dear God. Of the many things we don't need in this film, much like the runtime and time travel.
To be honest, the runtime didn't really bother me. It was just parts of the film that bothered me.
It just made me recontextualize the fact that there's so many legacy films where the runtime is so unbelievably long, especially if it's going to be an ending. It's like, oh, we have to make it really long. No, you don't. Like, no. I think for me, the reason why we've been doing it is because Avengers Endgame was 3 hours long, and since then, every single thing that's trying to end something is like, well, we need to make it really long, otherwise people will get mad.
See, I think
everything has to be longer.
I think if this film was any longer, I don't think I could deal with it, to be honest. Look, I can barely deal with this film as it is. Like, yeah. I ain't going to go out my way to go see it in cinema ever again. I'm not going to go out my way to rewatch it.
I'm never going to watch it again. And I can't believe I'm... Like, honestly, like, me choosing to rewatch Kingdom of the Crystal Skull last week-ish, as of when this episode goes out.
Sometime like that.
That was quite interesting. I was like, I haven't watched this film for years, like probably like a decade or something.
Yeah, I think mine's around the same. I haven't watched this film best part of like 10, 11 years.
Yeah. But here's the thing, I never owned it. I only owned the original trilogy.
No, did you not?
And no, well, the only way I watched it was because my mum had it downstairs in the drawer full of random films, two of which I could recognise.
The drawer full of random films.
Well, it was. Gosh, she had some random stuff in there. But she had Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I was like, why the hell have I not watched this one yet? So because I just didn't know it even existed, because all I had was the original trilogy. I was like, oh, okay, I'll give it a watch. And I remember as a kid, I was like, oh, that's fine. That's all right.
I'll tell you what, though, I'm kind of pleased that, I forget her name, but basically the actress who I mentioned before plays the CIA agent.
Mm-hmm.
I think at least it's not like some Mac from Crystal of the Kingdom skull, where it's like, so you're a secret agent?
Well, to be honest, no offense, Helena Shaw might as well be, because she just keeps on flip-flopping between us.
She does.
But it's like
1 minute, like, he's really needing help. She's like, screw it, leave him.
Thing is,
the next
though,
scene,
right?
oh, I'll save you.
Yeah, the thing is, like, Mac is a terrible character in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, but him constantly flipping back and forth makes sense for the era, because no offense, it's like the middle of the Cold War. Allegiances are so murky, and anyone will do whatever they can to survive. That's fine. Here, no sense at all. No. And it's just... It's one of those things, like... Actually, you know what? The best thing to come out of this is the fact that I can say I've seen an Indiana Jones film on the big screen. I didn't see Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Yeah,
on the big screen.
I think that's probably like the only like positive I can truly stay away, truly come away with the fact that I've seen an Indiana Jones film on the big screen.
Well, that's the thing, because that's all I could say. Because if someone asks us to specify, I'll be like, no, because I can't say it's this one.
All I'll say to you is Archimedes' alarm clock. That's all you need to know.
I'm going to have to refer to that as that every single time I talk to someone about this film who has actually seen it. Because I can't just say, well, no spoilers, but Archimedes' alarm clock.
Yeah, that just.
And then, like, as soon as
they
they watch it, they're like, oh no, Regan's ruined it again. Ruined it.
Well, it's basically I just kind of ruined the film for you when you saw it, because I sent you the gif of the DeLorean going through time, and then I said,
I didn't
wait
actually
till you
see
watch
that. I
the
didn't
film.
see that until after the fact, deliberately. Because I still thought they're not doing time travel. They're not. 2 hours later, oh.
Like, I was literally like, all I'll send is this. Was I right?
That was a spoiler enough, frankly. But yeah, it's just it's weird for a film that's trying to tell us that, like, you need to move forward, and it constantly goes back to the past. It harkens to things that have come before. You've completely missed the point of your own message. It feels like a $300 million waste of a story.
Oh yeah,
like
300 million disappointment.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like most of that budget goes to Harrison Ford's salary. Frankly, I joke, but I feel like
if not, probably the CG.
Well, because to be honest, I mean, no offense, his salary for The Force Awakens was $50 million. Yeah, seriously.
What? What?
But then you've even got, like, Alec Guinness back in the original Star Wars, who gets like X amount and then gets a percentage of the gross, so he makes millions upon millions.
What the?
It's just, like, actors are weird. Like, we didn't give anyone any kind of salary on, like, the short films that we did.
If anything, we
gave him a bunch of
our
sausage
own
rolls.
salary into the film. We were putting our own salary into the goddamn driver of the film.
Yeah, we did.
What the hell, man? Jesus Christ.
Imagine if all films were just as nice as that. Like the budgets would just drop entirely.
It's like, you know, you get some actor. It's like, okay, so we're open to your salary. 50 million is my goal.
I mean, I don't know what its budget is on this one, but I think it's just too much.
Yeah,
no
I mean, that is just
like,
absolutely ludicrous.
I will be curious how much it makes, because I know, like, as of us recording this, I think The Flash is rumored to, like, lose like $200 million. Like, it's just hit, I think, 214 million across the world.
I've seen quite a lot of The Flash, and it's I think it's actually doing worse than Black Adam was.
Oh yeah, it's doing way worse. I'll be curious what Dial of Destiny does, because I don't know what it would do, to be honest. I think it's on like 150 million so far, but again, it's only been out for it'll be out for about a week as of us recording this. But I don't know how successful it's going to be. It might just get dropped on Disney Plus relatively
so far,
quickly.
according to IMDb, its gross worldwide is 152 million US dollars.
Ouch.
So it's like just a little bit over half of its budget, more or less.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's not actually. It's nowhere near.
$250 to $329 million. Like, budgets
Yeah.
really need a drop on these things. Seriously. That's probably something we'll address in one of the episodes for technically August, technically July as of when we record it. But yeah, it's just there's too much money spent on something like this, especially when the original film's like 20-30 million.
Oh
Make
yeah,
it
like
down and dirty. Just make it like small scale. That's absolutely fine with me. I don't mind.
yeah, because
Or-
if I think we mentioned this before, like when you go small scale, yeah, you do have a lot of money to play with, but it's in no way a stupid amount like 300 million, so you can just sink whatever your heart's desire into it. Hell, you want more explosions? Let's put more explosions in.
But I think as well, especially post-COVID, I'm surprised they're putting this much money into it. I feel like they'd be quite conservative with it.
Clearly not.
It's just way too much, I think.
Yeah.
Especially for an Indiana, like of all franchises, Indiana Jones doesn't need a massive budget.
Understandable
Like-
for something like big, like I mean,
Yeah,
I know
like
Indiana
Star
Jones
Wars
is
or some
obviously
of the
big, like
some
Star
of the
Wars,
Marvel
yeah.
stuff.
Star Wars,
But I
Marvel,
think-
like, you know, big stuff. I mean, Indiana
Yeah.
Jones is obviously big itself, but it's nowhere to the scale of like Marvel or Star Wars.
Yeah, but I think as well, a lot of the budget is now going to actors. I think more than anything else, especially
Yeah.
with so many issues with like VFX artists and animation artists, which we will discuss in an episode in August, because I'm kind of fuming at that, quite frankly.
So
But
it's not going to be the real podcasters. It's going to be the real podcasters rant.
No, it's going to be the rant podcasters,
The rant podcasters.
the real pod ranters.
Oh my god.
That's a genius idea. We could just briefly change the title of the podcast every single time we do it. Because here's the thing, we haven't actually done a rant of anything yet. I don't think, maybe on Thor, I might have got really angry with that.
I think
Maybe
the only
Ant-Man 3
time
as
we've
well.
truly ranted has been
Is
with
this.
just absolute. Well, this Morbius.
I don't
Thor
remember
Love and
Morbius,
Thunder.
to be honest. Yeah,
And I think that's about it, really.
maybe
think
Ant.
th-
Well, I
those
think
are-
I might have ranted and like Ant-Man a bit more than you, but similar
Oh,
to
yeah.
Thor, because I was
Yeah.
a lot more negative on both of those than you were, especially Thor.
yeah,
was
then
like,
I changed my
thought this
mind
was crap.
totally and utterly about Thor. Hoo-hoo.
Yeah,
Boy,
yeah.
did
I mean,
I.
I like being in it, like an influence on you when it comes to bad movies, which is subjective.
Trust me, on the
But-
next episode of Graveyard Chit Chat, you're in for a surprise.
That's on Nightmare on Elm Street, isn't it?
Yes.
You're gonna turn around and say the film's garbage, aren't you?
Oh no! I was talking about the watchers.
Ooh, okay. Are you telling me that you've watched something that I really liked that you thought was garbage? It was
No,
Van Helsing
I've-
again.
I've just pretty much watched all garbage.
I watched the 1981 classic film Alligator, so there's that, and the Grand Tour. But that isn't a horror film. Anyway, I suppose we'll wrap up on Indiana Jones and the Why of Destiny.
And the
As I
Dial
keep
of
on referring to it
Inevitable
as such.
Disaster.
And the Dial of Plot Convenience. Of which it really is. Yeah, we actually love this film. We've actually been playing the long game. We actually think it's one of the best films of all time. It's not. It really isn't.
Definitely the
I
worst
can't
film I've seen in
remember-
cinema so far. Well, to
Um,
this day, anyway. To 2023, anyway.
I think you might be right, to be honest. I'd have to have a look at my ranking for 2023. In fact, literally, as we were talking about this, I mean, for one, The Flash is at number 5. That's going to have to change. To be honest, I think Ant-Man and the Wasp was worse. I've still got that as a 1 out of 5.
Oh, yeah, that
'cause there's
came out
just
there.
nothing I like in that.
Yeah, I think
Um,
that might be the worst, but Indiana Jones isn't far behind it.
Well, this is 2, but it's the same ring I gave Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. But that, at least, doesn't annoy me nearly as much as this one does. Like, that's really, like, that's way too clean. And and Indiana Jones is just a superhero. This isn't nearly as clean. But it has the Battle of Syracuse in it, and I just hate that. And time travel. and the alarm clock. At least that film
Indiana
didn't have
Jones and
an
Back to
alarm
the
clock.
Battle of Syracuse. Because it may as well be.
Oof, might as well. I mean, currently, of the 23 films I've watched this year, this is at 18. For reference, Ant-Man is at 21. Slash 22, technically, because I've also got the Grand Tour on there, which I haven't updated yet. Otherwise, the lowest is still Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey.
I just can't believe they're doing a sequel to that, man. I
wasn't
can't
going to be
believe
anything
it.
higher.
Well, yeah, what did you expect? I mean, ugh.
I expected a decent idea, and there was one. That's it.
I don't even
In
think it was a
concept, it
decent
works.
idea
In
there, to be
execution,
honest.
of which there's many.
I think some things just should stay on paper and never be made into films.
Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny is currently between The Unlikely Pilgrimage of Harold Fry and Peter Pan and Wendy, another Disney thing that shouldn't exist. Also, Sorry About the Demon and Skinamarink. Yeah, I think we've said about as much as we can on this motion picture that was shot with a camera.
Yeah, I mean, it's
And
been like an hour and 25 of pretty much just ranting about Indiana Jones 5.
No offense, this wasn't going to be a short one. This wasn't going to be like
no.
Shazam 2, where it's like, we've actually run out of things to say. No, we're actually running out of ways to not talk about the things we want to talk about.
So in Limelight, there's some okay stuff, but the majority of the film is just crap.
Well, that's the thing. It's the same with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. There is some decent ideas. Just Indiana Jones shouldn't be decent ideas. It should be great ideas.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
neither of these films have had that, except
Because
the
a
last
lot
one
of people
didn't annoy
grew
me.
up with great ideas of, adventure film, etc. like that. You want good adventure. You don't want convenient plot device involving time.
Mm-hmm. It just means that now, of the 5 films, Raiders of the Lost Ark is the awkward middle child of like the 5. And I'm saying awkward middle child as if it's like mediocre. It's not. It's great. It's just 2 and 3 I prefer, and 4 and 5 are the weakest. This one easily being the worst, and I'm just really annoyed that that's the case, because I thought I really want this to be good. Because no offense,
and
when
honestly, I can't even reiterate it enough. I'm just so disappointed in it, man. Like,
when we
as
do
the
like,
last Indiana Jones film, you'd think they'd go off, like, finish with a bang, but honestly, it just finishes with, like, a pew. I'm just like, wow, that was a film. Time to go home.
I think it's safe to say that when we get round to the best and worst of 2023 at the beginning of next year, if this isn't the most disappointing film of 2023, I'll be baffled.
Oh yeah, it's
like, I really will. Like, looking at the rest of this year, the only other one that could disappoint me is like Mission Impossible 7. But that's it. There's nothing else this year that I'm like, ooh, I'm really looking forward to. Like, I can't think of a way that this would be the most like this wouldn't be the most disappointing film. But I think for me, going in, it was similar to Force Awakens. I'm incredibly excited at the idea of another sequel.
Well, actually,
but at the same time, I'm like really terrified.
There is
because
one I can think of for like 2023. The only other one I could think of is Skinamarink, but that's just me personally, because it was just like a lot of people were really hyped up about this. I was like, oh, I'm gonna watch it because a lot of people are saying it's really good, but it's nothing more than like a solid hour and a bit of just creepy atmosphere footage, and I'm just like, wow. So it's basically just like a hour and a bit of filler that I can just stick on and be creeped out every so often. But I think Indiana Jones is gonna have to be the one for the most disappointing, because Jesus, man,
definitely
most disappointing cinema experience as well.
To be honest, most disappointing of the last few years. Second only to Thor, to be honest, because I went in there with like, I'm really looking forward to this. Just suddenly turned into the Joker there. Yeah, I think that's our final thoughts on the motion picture that we watched. It's really funny how I said, like, for this year, I'm trying to specifically pick episodes where the final results shouldn't be too annoying for us, but 2023 is proven to be pretty similar to last year, and that there's a lot of stinkers so far, in 2023. In fact, even looking at like there's a few. There's quite a few.
There's a couple.
Yeah, so I'm quite annoyed with that. That being said, I know there's some people that really like this film, and that's fantastic. I've got no problems with people.
I'm
liking
pleased
this
that people
film.
liked it. You know, I'm not going to sit and say, well, how can you're totally in the wrong. I'm not going to be one of those people. You know, we all have different tastes, etc.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's really great that people can still enjoy this film for what it is. That's absolutely fine. I've got no problems with that at all. Just for us, it just didn't deliver on just justifying its own existence beyond just doing another ending when suddenly the 2008 misfire actually seemed like it was actually on to something. That's mental. That's what I'm thinking. But yes, thank you very much for listening to this almost rant. I say almost rant, absolutely rant on Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll be curious as to how I edit this thing. There's a fair amount
it's going to be a challenge.
Yeah, that's going to be a challenge in and of itself. I've got literally 48 hours as of us talking about this. But yes, as I say, I really hope you enjoyed it. As ever, links to everything in the description, listening platforms, which seems a bit redundant now if you've listened to it wherever you are. If you listen to it on Podbean, you're really desperate. Probably YouTube, I feel like. Now we're back on that. Next week, though, we're going to be doing another movie review. This time, one of our Take 2 reviews on a film I haven't watched for almost about a decade as well. That being Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl, which is 20 years old this year. So initially, it was just that film that we were going to cover. Now we're going to cover the first 3 over the next month or two. Not the last 2. Screw that. I'm not doing that. I will cover the score. That's it. I'll do a 1-hour episode of me just talking about the score of the film. But yes, we'll cover Curse of the Black Pearl next week. And what are we talking about on Graveyard Chit Chat again, Dan, next week?
We are talking about, well, one of the big slasher films, A Nightmare on Elm Street from 1984. So if you like horror films, please do consider listening to us. It's basically the Real Podcasters horror edition.
Yes, I've essentially resigned myself to not covering horror films on this anymore for the purpose of Graveyard Chit Chat.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, it's like, like A Quiet Place Day 1. No. Schedule doesn't work for that for March.
It's like this podcast is all the happy dappy films, and the other one is just like dark and gloomy.
Like Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. No, it's fine. Yes. Talk about Pirates of the Caribbean next week and A Nightmare on Elm Street over on Graveyard Chit Chat whenever we get around to recording that. But yes, thank you very much for listening. Really hope you enjoyed it. And as ever, it's goodbye from Dan.
Ta-ra.
And it's goodbye from me. Goodbye.